January 17, 1917. Deep in the Admiralty building in London, a team of British codebreakers stares at a decrypted German telegram. They've been intercepting and reading German communications for more than 2 years, ever since the start of World War I. They've decoded thousands of messages, troop movements, supply orders, diplomatic communications. But this message is different. This message is explosive. This message could change the entire course of the war. It's from Arthur Zimmermann, Germany's foreign secretary, to the German ambassador in Mexico, and it contains a proposal so audacious, so provocative, so potentially catastrophic for Germany that the British codebreakers initially wonder if they've made a mistake in the decryption. The telegram instructs the German ambassador to approach the Mexican government with an offer. If Mexico joins Germany in a war against the United States, Germany will help Mexico recover the territories it lost in the Mexican-American War of 1846-1848. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. In other words, Germany is proposing that Mexico invade the United States. The British codebreakers understand immediately what they're holding. This telegram, if made public, could bring the United States into World War I on the Allied side. America has been neutral for nearly 3 years, despite German provocations, despite the sinking of the Lusitania, despite public sympathy for Britain and France. President Woodrow Wilson just won re-election on the slogan, "He kept us out of war." But this is different. This is Germany actively plotting with Mexico to attack American territory. This is a direct threat to American sovereignty. This could be the provocation that finally brings America into the war. But there's a problem. Actually, several problems. First, the British can't simply hand the telegram to the Americans and say, "Look what we intercepted," because that would reveal that Britain has been reading German diplomatic codes. The Germans would immediately change their codes and Britain would lose access to crucial intelligence. Second, and even more problematic, the British intercepted this telegram by tapping the transatlantic cables that run through British territory, including American diplomatic cables. The United States has been allowing Germany to send diplomatic messages through American cables as a neutral service. Britain has been secretly reading all of it. If this becomes public, it will cause a massive diplomatic incident between Britain and America. So the British face an intelligence dilemma that's almost as significant as the telegram itself. How do you reveal explosive intelligence without revealing how you obtained it? Over the next 6 weeks, British intelligence will engage in an elaborate deception to get this telegram to the Americans in a way that protects British sources and methods. They will steal a copy from the Mexican Telegraph Office. They will create a cover story. They will carefully manage the revelation to maximize impact while minimizing risk. And it will work. The Zimmermann telegram will become one of the most consequential intelligence coups in history. It will bring America into World War I. It will help ensure Allied victory, and it will establish many of the principles of modern signals intelligence that govern spy agencies to this day. But the most remarkable part of the story, the part that intelligence professionals still study as the ultimate example of an unforced error, when the telegram is made public and Germany has every reason to deny it, to claim it's a British forgery, to cast doubt on its authenticity, Arthur Zimmermann will admit it's real. He will confirm that yes, Germany did propose a Mexican alliance against the United States. He will hand the Americans the definitive proof they need to go to war. This is the story of the Zimmermann telegram, a story of code-breaking and espionage, of diplomatic blundering and strategic desperation, of how one message changed the course of World War I and American history. To understand why this telegram mattered so much, we need to go back to the world of 1917, to a war that had been raging for more than 2 years, killing millions with no end in sight. The world at war, 1917, August 1914. Europe explodes into war. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo triggers a cascade of alliance obligations. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Russia mobilizes to defend Serbia. Germany declares war on Russia and France. Germany invades Belgium. Britain declares war on Germany. Within weeks, the major powers of Europe are locked in the most devastating war in human history to that point. Everyone expects it to be over quickly. Home by Christmas, the soldiers say as they march off to war. The generals plan for swift, decisive campaigns, mobile warfare, rapid advances, clear victories. Instead, the war bogs down into a nightmare. The Western Front becomes a line of trenches stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland. Millions of men face each other across a devastated no-man's land of barbed wire, fell craters and mud. Attacks gain a few hundred yards at the cost of tens of thousands of casualties. Offensive technology, machine guns, artillery, barbed wire proves far superior to offensive tactics. The battles become slaughterhouses. Verdun, the Somme, Aschendale, hundreds of thousands dead in single battles. An entire generation of young European men fed into the meat grinder of trench warfare. And still the stalemate continues. By early 1917, the war has been raging for more than 2.5 years. The death toll exceeds 10 million soldiers and civilians. The economies of the warring nations are strained to the breaking point. War weariness is setting in. Soldiers mutiny. Civilians starve. Until neither side can break through. And the the Eastern Front Russia is collapsing. Revolution is brewing. The Tsarist government is losing control. Russian armies, despite their enormous size, are being beaten by Germany. It's only a matter of time before Russia drops out of the war entirely. This is both an opportunity and a threat for Germany. Opportunity because if Russia exits the war, Germany can shift millions of troops from the Eastern Front to the West. It could finally have the numerical superiority needed to break the deadlock in France. Threat because Britain and France know this too. They need something to offset the collapse of Russia. They need fresh troops, fresh resources, fresh hope. They need America. The United States has been neutral since the war began. President Woodrow Wilson has carefully maintained American neutrality despite provocations from both sides. He's mediated peace talks. He's offered to broker a settlement. He's insisted that America has no stake in Europe's self-destructive conflict. Wilson genuinely believes in neutrality. He thinks American intervention would be a mistake. He thinks America can serve as an honest broker for peace. And politically, he needs neutrality. The American public is divided. Many Americans sympathize with Britain and France, but millions of German Americans and Irish Americans oppose helping Britain. The country is not ready for war. Wilson won re-election in November 1916 largely on the slogan, "He kept us out of war." His opponent, Charles Evans Hughes, was seen as more likely to bring America into the conflict. Wilson's victory was narrow, and it was interpreted as a mandate for continued neutrality. But neutrality is becoming harder to maintain. Germany's submarine warfare is the biggest problem. Britain has blockaded Germany, trying to starve it into submission. Germany has responded with submarine U-boats attacking merchant ships bringing supplies to Britain. This includes American ships and ships carrying American passengers. In May 1915, a German U-boat sank the Lusitania, a British passenger liner, off the coast of Ireland. Nearly 200 people died, including 128 Americans. The American public was outraged. Many demanded war. Wilson didn't go to war, but he did extract a promise from Germany: no more unrestricted submarine warfare. Germany would warn merchant ships before sinking them, giving passengers and crew time to evacuate. It was a compromise that allowed Wilson to maintain neutrality while appearing to stand up for American rights. But by early 1917, that compromise is falling apart. Germany is losing the war of attrition. The British blockade is devastating the German economy. Food shortages are causing unrest. Military leaders are demanding more aggressive action. The German Navy argues that unrestricted submarine warfare attacking merchant ships without warning, sinking anything headed for Britain could win the war. Yes, it would probably bring America into the war. But Germany calculates that it can starve Britain into submission before America can mobilize, train, and deploy enough troops to make a difference. It's a huge gamble, but Germany is desperate. The alternative is a slow, grinding defeat. So in January 1917, Germany makes the decision: unrestricted submarine warfare will resume on February 1st. They will attack any ship in the war zone around Britain, without warning, without mercy. Germany knows this will likely bring America into the war, which is why Arthur Zimmermann, Germany's foreign secretary, sends his infamous telegram to Mexico on January 16, 1917. The logic from Germany's perspective is clear. If America enters the war, Germany needs America to be distracted. If Mexico attacks the United States, America will have to divert troops and resources to defend its southern border. America won't be able to send its full force to Europe. It's desperate strategic thinking. But in January 1917, Germany is a desperate nation making desperate decisions. What Germany doesn't know is that British intelligence is reading every word of these desperate plans. And British intelligence is about to turn Germany's desperation into the greatest intelligence coup of the war. To understand how that happens, we need to meet Arthur Zimmermann and understand why an otherwise competent diplomat would make such a catastrophic error. Arthur Zimmermann, the man behind the telegram. Arthur Zimmermann is not a typical Prussian aristocrat. He's the son of a small-town businessman, born in East Prussia in 1864. He doesn't have the noble pedigree of most German diplomats. He rose through the ranks of the foreign ministry through competence, hard work, and political acumen. By 1917, he's Germany's foreign secretary, essentially the foreign minister. He's responsible for German diplomacy during the most critical period in the nation's history, and he's in an impossible position. Germany is at war with Britain, France, Russia, and several other nations. It's fighting a two-front war against numerically superior enemies. Its economy is being strangled by the British blockade. Its people are suffering food shortages. Military casualties are staggering, and the United States, with its enormous industrial capacity and untapped military potential, is moving toward entering the war on the Allied side. Zimmermann's job is to use diplomacy to improve Germany's strategic position. That means keeping America neutral if possible, or at least delaying American entry into the war. It means trying to weaken the Allied coalition. It means looking for any advantage, any alliance, any possibility that could shift the balance. This is where Mexico enters the picture. Mexico in 1917 is in chaos. The Mexican Revolution has been raging since 1910. Multiple factions fight for control. Venustiano Carranza leads the constitutionalist government that the United States recognizes, but his control is tenuous. Revolutionary leaders like Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata control large areas of the country. The government is weak, the economy is devastated, and political stability is non-existent. More importantly for Germany, Mexico has serious grievances against the United States. In 1846, the United States went to war with Mexico and won decisively. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 forced Mexico to cede almost half its territory to the United States. Texas, which had already declared independence, California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona and New Mexico, and parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas, and Oklahoma. This loss is a profound wound in Mexican national consciousness. 70 years later, many Mexicans still resent the territorial losses and see the United States as an aggressive, imperialist neighbor. More recently, the United States has intervened repeatedly in Mexican affairs. In 1914, U.S. forces occupied the port of Veracruz. In 1916, General John Pershing led an expedition deep into Mexico chasing Pancho Villa after Villa raided the town of Columbus, New Mexico. The Pershing expedition failed to capture Villa and created enormous resentment in Mexico. It was seen as a violation of Mexican sovereignty. So from Germany's perspective, Mexico has reasons to dislike the United States. Maybe Zimmermann thinks Mexico could be convinced to attack the United States in exchange for German support and the promise of recovering lost territories. It's not an entirely irrational idea, at least from Berlin. Germany doesn't have detailed intelligence on conditions in Mexico. Zimmermann doesn't understand how weak the Mexican government is, how impossible it would be for Mexico to launch a serious military campaign against the United States, or how unlikely Carranza is to risk everything on a German gamble. From Berlin, it looks like a strategic opportunity. Mexico shares a long border with the United States. Mexican attacks could force America to keep troops at home rather than sending them to Europe. Even if Mexico doesn't actually invade, the threat might be enough to distract American attention and resources. Zimmermann also proposes that Germany would try to convince Japan to join the alliance. Japan and the United States have tensions over immigration and Pacific interests. Maybe Japan could be convinced to attack American holdings in the Philippines or Hawaii, further stretching American forces. In Zimmermann's mind, he's creating a strategic nightmare for the United States, simultaneous threats on the southern border and in the Pacific, forcing America to fight a multi-front war far from European battlefields. The flaw in this thinking, the catastrophic, unforgivable flaw, is that Zimmermann doesn't seriously consider what happens if this telegram is intercepted and made public. He encrypts it, of course. Germany has diplomatic code specifically designed to keep communications secret. The telegram is encrypted using code 007-5, a German diplomatic cipher that Zimmermann believes is secure, but he doesn't consider the full implications of what he's proposing. He's asking Mexico to attack the United States. He's proposing to help Mexico reconquer American states. He's plotting against America while using American diplomatic channels to send a message. If this becomes public, it's not just embarrassing, it's an act of war. It's proof of German hostile intent toward the United States. It's the justification Wilson's opponents need to demand American entry into the war. Zimmermann is gambling that the message will remain secret, that Mexico will seriously consider the proposal, and that even if America eventually enters the war, the Mexican distraction will buy Germany enough time to defeat Britain and France. It's a desperate gamble by a desperate man in a desperate nation, and it's about to blow up in Germany's face, thanks to a team of British codebreakers who have been reading German communications for more than 2 years. Let's meet the team that cracked the Zimmermann telegram and changed the course of history. Room 40, Britain's secret weapon. Room 40. The name is deliberately mundane, bureaucratic, forgettable. It's a room in the Admiralty building in London, the headquarters of the British Navy. The room number is 40, hence Room 40. But this boring name hides one of Britain's most valuable assets in World War I, a team of codebreakers who are reading German naval and diplomatic communications, giving Britain a crucial intelligence advantage. Room 40 was born in the early days of the war, and its creation involves both brilliant preparation and extraordinary luck. Before the war, the British Admiralty recognized that wireless communication would be crucial in modern naval warfare. Ships could coordinate over vast distances. Commands could be sent instantly, but wireless communication has a vulnerability: anyone can intercept it. You can't send a wireless message to just one recipient. You broadcast it, and anyone listening can hear it. This means codes and ciphers are essential. Germany knows this. They develop sophisticated naval codes to protect their communications. Britain knows this too, and Britain starts preparing to break those codes. The man who builds Room 40 is Admiral Sir Henry Oliver, the Director of Naval Intelligence, and his civilian recruit, Alfred Ewing, an engineer and academic who becomes the first director of Room 40. But the real work is done by a remarkable collection of civilians, academics, linguists, mathematicians who have the skills to break codes, but no military background. These civilians are recruited from universities, particularly Cambridge. Many are German scholars who know the language intimately. Some are mathematicians who understand probability and pattern recognition. Others are simply brilliant puzzle solvers who can see patterns others miss. They work long hours in cramped conditions, poring over intercepted German messages, looking for patterns, testing theories, slowly reconstructing the German codes, and they get a lucky break early in the war. In August 1914, just days after the war starts, the Russian Navy captures a German cruiser in the Baltic. On the cruiser is a German naval codebook. The Russians give a copy to Britain. Suddenly, Room 40 has the key to German naval communications, but codes change. The Germans develop new codes, modify existing ones. Room 40 has to keep breaking them. This requires constant work, brilliant intuition, and methodical analysis. The team develops techniques that will become standard in cryptography. They look for frequently used words and phrases, stop at the end of messages, reply immediately, ship names, ranks. They compare encrypted messages to known plaintext instances where they can guess what a message says and work backward to figure out the encryption. They build on partial breaks, using what they know about one code to attack another. By 1917, Room 40 is reading a substantial portion of German communications. They're intercepting wireless messages. They're tapping telegraph cables. They have copies of German codebooks captured from ships and diplomatic pouches. They have a sophisticated operation that gives Britain eyes into German planning. But here's the secret that Room 40 guards carefully. They're also reading American diplomatic cables. The transatlantic telegraph cables that connect Europe to America run through British territory. There are cable stations in Britain where messages are transmitted and received. This gives Britain the physical ability to intercept messages. Early in the war, Germany's own cables were cut by the British Navy. This forced Germany to use alternative routes for diplomatic communications. One option was wireless, but wireless is easy to intercept and Germany knows Britain is listening. The more secure option, ironically, is to send messages through neutral countries' cables, including American diplomatic cables. The United States, as a neutral power, allows Germany to send diplomatic messages through the American State Department's cables. It's a courtesy extended to maintain diplomatic communications even during war. Messages go from Berlin to the American Embassy in Berlin, then via American cables to Washington, then to the American Embassy in Mexico City, then to the German ambassador in Mexico. Britain is tapping all of it. Every message that goes through British cable stations is intercepted and copied. Room 40 reads American diplomatic traffic, German messages sent via American cables, and anything else it can intercept. This is, of course, a massive violation of American sovereignty and neutrality. If it becomes public, it will cause a serious diplomatic crisis. But Britain considers the intelligence value worth the risk. So when the Zimmermann telegram is sent on January 16, 1917, Room 40 intercepts it at multiple points. They have the version sent from Berlin to Washington. They later obtain the version sent from Washington to Mexico City. They have all the pieces. Now they have to decrypt it. The telegram is sent in code 007. 5. The German diplomatic cipher. Room 40 has a partial break on this code. They can read some of it, but not all. They've captured codebooks, analyzed previous messages, built up a vocabulary of code groups and their meanings. The codebreakers go to work. Nigel de Grey, one of Room 40's most talented cryptanalysts, leads the effort. He and Reverend William Montgomery, another brilliant codebreaker, work through the message group by group. Some parts are immediately clear. The message is from Zimmermann to the German ambassador in Mexico. It concerns relations with Mexico. It mentions the United States, but some code groups are unclear. The codebreakers have to guess, test theories, use context to fill in blanks. Over several days, they reconstruct enough of the message to understand its explosive content. By January 17th, they have it. Germany is proposing a military alliance with Mexico. Germany will help Mexico reconquer Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. In exchange, Mexico will attack the United States if America enters the war. The Room 40 team brings the decrypted telegram to Admiral William Linker Hall, the Director of Naval Intelligence. Hall is a legendary figure in British intelligence, ruthless, brilliant, willing to take enormous risks for intelligence advantage. Hall immediately grasps the significance. This telegram could bring America into the war, but he also grasps the problem. How do you use this intelligence without revealing that Britain is reading German codes and tapping American cables? The answer will require one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations of the war, a masterpiece of deception and manipulation that will get the telegram to the Americans while protecting British sources. Let's follow the telegram on its journey from Berlin to Mexico City and see how the British intercept it, decode it, and eventually weaponize it. The telegram's journey, January 16th, 1917. Arthur Zimmermann drafts his message in Berlin. He's proposing something extraordinary, and he knows it needs to be kept secret, so he orders it encrypted using Germany's diplomatic codes. The message is relatively short. In plain German, it reads, "We intend to begin on the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. We shall endeavor in spite of this to keep the United States of America neutral. In the event of this not succeeding, we make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis: make war together, make peace together, generous financial support and an understanding on our part that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The settlement in detail is left to you. You will inform the President of the above most secretly as soon as the outbreak of war with the United States of America is certain. and add the suggestion that he should, on his own initiative, invite Japan to immediate adherence, and at the same time mediate between Japan and ourselves. Please call the President's attention to the fact that the ruthless employment of our submarines now offers the prospect of compelling England in a few months to make peace. It's addressed to the German ambassador in Washington, Count Johann von Bernstorff, with instructions to forward it to the German ambassador in Mexico, Heinrich von Eckart. The message is encoded using code 007. 5. A diplomatic cipher. The Germans consider it secure, then in use for some time, and they have no reason to believe it's been compromised. But they're wrong. British intelligence has a partial break on code 007. 5. They can't read everything, but they can read enough to be dangerous. Now Zimmermann faces a practical problem: how to send this encrypted message from Berlin to Mexico City. Germany's own transatlantic cables were cut by the British Navy early in the war. Germany can send wireless messages, but wireless is easily intercepted, and the British are known to be listening. For a message this sensitive, wireless seems too risky, so Germany uses American diplomatic cables. The United States, as a neutral power, allows Germany to send encrypted diplomatic messages through the State Department's cable system. It's a courtesy designed to maintain diplomatic communications even during wartime. The encrypted telegram goes from Berlin to the American embassy in Berlin. The Americans don't decrypt it, it's a sealed diplomatic message. They transmit it via their cables to Washington. From Washington, it goes to the American embassy in Mexico City. From there, it's delivered to the German ambassador. It's a clever route. Germany gets to use secure cable rather than risky wireless. The message passes through American hands, but the Americans don't read it. They're just acting as a neutral postal service for diplomatic communications. Except the British are reading everything. The telegram passes through British cable stations. Every message that goes through those stations is intercepted and copied. Room 40 receives the encrypted telegram almost immediately. They start working on decrypting it using their partial knowledge of code 007. 5. By January 17th, they have enough decrypted to understand the general meaning. By January 19th, they have a more complete translation, though some parts remain unclear. Admiral Hall now has the explosive telegram, but he has several problems. First, the decryption isn't complete. There are code groups Room 40 can't break. The translation has gaps. If Britain presents this to America, the Germans might claim it's a forgery, pointing to the incomplete sections as proof Britain is making it up. Second, presenting the telegram reveals that Britain is reading German codes. The Germans will immediately change their codes, and Britain will lose a crucial intelligence advantage. Third, and perhaps most damaging, the telegram was sent via American diplomatic cables. If Britain admits it intercepted and decrypted messages going through American diplomatic channels, it will cause a major diplomatic crisis. The Americans will be furious that Britain has been spying on their communications. Hall needs a solution that gets the telegram to the Americans, convinces them it's authentic, but doesn't reveal British sources and methods. The solution is brilliant and audacious. Steal another copy. Room 40 has intercepted the version sent from Berlin to Washington, but that telegram was then forwarded from Washington to Mexico City. That second transmission used an older, simpler German code 13040, because the German embassy in Mexico doesn't have the newer codebooks. If Room 40 can get a copy of the Mexico City version, they can decrypt it completely. They have a full break on the older code, and they can claim it was obtained in Mexico rather than by tapping cables in Britain. Hall contacts British agents in Mexico City. They manage to bribe an employee of the Commercial Telegraph Office to give them a copy of the encrypted telegram. It's a delicate operation. They need to steal the copy without alerting the Germans that their communications have been compromised. The operation succeeds. Room 40 now has two versions of the telegram: the incomplete decryption of the Berlin to Washington version, and the complete decryption of the Washington to Mexico version. The complete version fills in all the gaps. Every word is clear. The proposal is unambiguous. Germany is offering to help Mexico reconquer American territory in exchange for attacking the United States. Now Hall has to decide how and when to reveal this to the Americans. The timing is crucial. Reveal it too early, and the impact might be diluted. Reveal it too late, and Germany might change its plans. And he has to construct a cover story that explains how Britain obtained the telegram without admitting to cable tapping. The cover story they devise is this: British intelligence obtained the telegram from the German embassy in Mexico City. They don't say how, letting people assume it was traditional espionage, a burglary, or a bribed employee. This protects the truth that Britain has been systematically intercepting and decrypting German and American cable traffic. By late February, everything is in place. Hall has the complete telegram. He has a plausible cover story, and the timing is perfect. Germany has just resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. American ships are being sunk, and public opinion is turning against Germany. It's time to show the Americans what Germany is plotting. But first, let's look at Mexico's perspective on all of this. Because while Germany is proposing a grand alliance, Mexico has its own calculations to make about whether this insane proposal makes any sense at all. Mexico's perspective: tempting but impossible. To understand Mexico's position in 1917, you need to understand the Mexican Revolution, a complex, brutal, decade-long struggle that's still ongoing. The revolution began in 1910 when Francisco Madero challenged the longtime dictator Porfirio Diaz. Diaz had ruled Mexico for more than 3 decades, bringing stability and economic modernization, but also brutal repression and massive inequality. The revolution that toppled him unleashed forces that no one could control. By 1917, the revolution has passed through multiple phases. Adero was overthrown and murdered in 1913. Victoriano Huerta, to seize power, ruling as a military dictator until he was forced out in 1914. Various revolutionary factions then fought among themselves: Venustiano Carranza's Constitutionalists, Pancho Villa's Division of the North, Emiliano Zapata's Liberation Army of the South. Carranza eventually consolidated power and was recognized by the United States in 1915 as the legitimate president, but his control is tenuous. Villa and Zapata remain in rebellion. The economy is shattered, infrastructure is destroyed, political stability is a distant dream, and Carranza has a complicated relationship with the United States. On one hand, American recognition was crucial to his legitimacy. Without it, he might have lost the Civil War. The United States provides diplomatic support and allows Carranza's government to buy weapons and supplies. On the other hand, Carranza deeply resents American interference in Mexican affairs. The 1914 American occupation of Veracruz was a humiliation. The 1916 Pershing expedition, 10,000 American troops invading Mexico to chase Pancho Villa, was a violation of sovereignty that Carranza barely tolerated. Carranza is a nationalist. He wants Mexico to be independent, self-determining, free from foreign interference. But he's also a pragmatist. He knows Mexico is too weak to directly confront the United States. He needs to carefully balance nationalist rhetoric with practical recognition of American power. So when Heinrich von Icar, the German ambassador, approaches Carranza with the Zimmermann telegram's proposal, Carranza faces an interesting but ultimately impossible dilemma. The offer is tempting on an emotional level. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, these territories were Mexican until the United States took them 70 years ago. Many Mexicans still resent the loss. Recovering them would be a nationalist triumph, a reversal of historical humiliation. But on every practical level, the proposal is absurd. First, Mexico is in no position to wage war against anyone, let alone the United States. The country is still torn by civil war. The military is fragmented, with various factions controlling different regions. There's no unified command, no industrial base to support a sustained military campaign, no functioning logistics system to supply an army. The Mexican economy is devastated after 7 years of revolution. There's no money for a war. Foreign investment has fled. Tax revenues have collapsed. The government can barely pay its own employees, much less finance a military campaign. Second, even if Mexico could somehow mobilize an army and attack the United States, what would happen? The United States military in 1917 is relatively small by European standards, about 200,000 soldiers, but that's still vastly larger and better equipped than anything Mexico could field. The Mexican army would be crushed, and even if, by some miracle, Mexico achieved initial successes and captured some border territory, then what? The United States would mobilize its full industrial and military might. Mexico would face an invasion that would dwarf the Pershing expedition. The Mexican government might not survive. Third, the promise of German help is essentially worthless. Germany is on the other side of the Atlantic, fighting for its survival in Europe. It can't send troops to Mexico. It can't send significant weapons or supplies. The British blockade prevents it. All Germany can offer is money and vague promises of support after it wins the war in Europe. But if Germany loses the war, which by 1917 seems increasingly likely, then Mexican cooperation with Germany would have been for nothing. Mexico would have attacked the United States, been defeated, and have nothing to show for it except American occupation and the complete loss of what little sovereignty it has. Carranza understands all of this. He's a nationalist, but he's not suicidal. He understands power politics. He knows that Mexico's independence depends on not provoking the United States into a full-scale invasion. So when von Icar presents Zimmermann's proposal, Carranza responds carefully. He doesn't reject it outright. That would offend Germany, and Mexico wants to maintain good relations with all major powers. But he doesn't accept it either. He makes non-committal noises about considering it, studying it, thinking about Mexico's options. Essentially, Carranza stalls. He knows that Germany is desperate, and desperate nations make offers that should be ignored. He knows that the war in Europe will eventually end, and Mexico needs to be on good terms with whoever wins. Joining Germany against the United States would be betting everything on a German victory that seems increasingly unlikely. There's also a deeper calculation. Even if the United States doesn't find out about the Zimmermann telegram, the mere fact that Germany approached Mexico with this proposal shows how Germany views Mexico as a tool to be used, a distraction to tie down American forces, not as a serious ally or equal partner. The proposal is actually insulting when you think about it. Germany is asking Mexico to sacrifice itself to attack a far stronger neighbor, to be crushed, to be occupied, all to buy Germany a few extra months in Europe. Germany isn't offering real help, it's asking Mexico to commit suicide for German benefit. Carranza is too smart to fall for that. So the Zimmermann telegram, from Mexico's perspective, is interesting as a diplomatic curiosity, but irrelevant as a practical matter. Mexico will not attack the United States, with or without German encouragement. But Carranza doesn't know that the telegram has already been intercepted. He doesn't know that British intelligence has decrypted it. He doesn't know that it's about to be revealed to the Americans and to the world. When that revelation comes, Carranza will have to carefully manage the fallout, reassuring the Americans that Mexico never seriously considered the proposal while also maintaining nationalist dignity by not appearing to grovel. It's a delicate balancing act that Carranza will navigate successfully, but that's getting ahead of the story. First, we need to see how the British get this telegram to the Americans, how the Americans react, and how one German foreign secretary's incredible blunder transforms American public opinion overnight. The British dilemma, to reveal or not to reveal. Late January and early February 1917. Admiral Blinker Hall sits in his office in the Admiralty building with the most explosive intelligence of the war. The Zimmermann telegram could bring America into the war on the Allied side. It could change the entire strategic balance. But Hall can't simply hand it to the Americans and say, "Look what we found." The intelligence game is more complicated than that. He has several overlapping problems, each requiring careful management. Problem 1. Protecting sources and methods. Room 40 has been reading German codes for more than 2 years. This capability is extraordinarily valuable. It gives Britain advance warning of German naval movements, insight into German strategy, and the ability to anticipate German actions. Revealing the Zimmermann telegram means revealing that Britain can read German diplomatic codes. The Germans will respond by changing their codes. They'll create new ones, distribute new codebooks, modify their encryption procedures. Room 40 might be able to break the new codes eventually, but it will take time and effort. In the meantime, Britain loses a crucial advantage. Hall has to weigh the value of bringing America into the war against the value of continuing to read German codes. It's not an easy calculation. American entry would provide enormous resources, money, industrial production, eventually millions of fresh troops. But losing the code-breaking advantage could cost Britain crucial battles at sea and valuable intelligence about German strategy. Hall decides the risk is worth it. America's entry into the war is more valuable than continuing to read German codes, but he still needs to protect Room 40 as much as possible. Problem 2. The American cable problem. Britain has been intercepting messages sent through American diplomatic cables. This is a massive violation of American neutrality and sovereignty. The Americans allowed Germany to use State Department cables as a neutral courtesy, never imagining that Britain was reading everything. If the Americans discover this, they'll be furious, not just at Germany, but at Britain. It might even damage the Anglo-American relationship that Britain desperately needs to preserve. So Hall needs a cover story that explains how Britain obtained the telegram without admitting to cable interception. This is why stealing the copy from Mexico City was crucial. It gives him a plausible alternative explanation. The cover story Hall constructs is deliberately vague. British intelligence obtained the telegram in Mexico. He doesn't specify how. This allows people to assume it was traditional espionage, a burglary, a bribed employee, a spy in the German embassy. It protects the truth about cable interception. Problem 3. Authentication. When the telegram is revealed, Germany will have every reason to claim it's a forgery. This is British propaganda, they'll say. Britain fabricated this telegram to trick America into joining the war. Skepticism is natural. The telegram is so provocative, so damaging to Germany, that it seems almost too convenient for British interests. Many Americans, especially those who oppose entering the war, will be suspicious. Hall needs the telegram to be authenticated in a way that leaves no doubt about its genuineness. The best way to do this would be for Germany itself to admit the telegram is real. But why would Germany do that? This is a problem Hall can't entirely solve in advance. He'll have to present the telegram and hope that the evidence is convincing enough to overcome skepticism. Problem 4. Timing. When should the telegram be revealed? Too early and its impact might be diluted. Too late and the opportunity might pass. Hall decides to wait until Germany resumes unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1st. Once German U-boats start sinking American ships, American public opinion will already be turning against Germany. The telegram will be the final push, the proof that Germany is actively hostile to American interests. He also needs to coordinate with the Americans carefully. He can't just leak the telegram to the press. That would raise questions about how it was obtained and might make it seem like British manipulation. He needs to go through official channels, presenting it to the American government and letting them decide how to handle it. The approach to America. On February 19th, Hall arranges a meeting with Edward Bell, the secretary of the American Embassy in London. He shows Bell the decrypted telegram and explains, with his carefully constructed cover story, that it was obtained in Mexico City. Bell is shocked. He immediately recognizes the significance. He cables Washington, informing the State Department that British intelligence has explosive information to share. On February 23rd, the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, formally presents the telegram to Walter Hines Page, the American ambassador to Britain. Page is already strongly pro-British and pro-intervention. He's been arguing for months that America should enter the war. The Zimmermann telegram gives him the ammunition he needs. Page cables President Wilson and Secretary of State Robert Lansing. He sends the full text of the decrypted telegram telegram along with the British explanation of how it was obtained. The message reaches Wilson on February 24, 1917. Wilson reads it and immediately grasps its significance. But he also has doubts. Is it real? Would it be a British forgery designed to manipulate America into war? Wilson is naturally suspicious. He spent more than 2 years resisting pressure to enter the war. He won re-election on keeping America neutral. He knows the British desperately want America to join the Allies. This telegram is almost too perfect for British interests. It provides exactly the justification Wilson's opponents need to demand war. So Wilson asks the crucial question, how can we verify this is genuine? The British have anticipated this. They've provided enough details that the telegram can be checked. The State Department has records of German messages sent through American cables. They can confirm that a message matching the description was sent on the dates indicated. The Americans check. Yes, there are records of encrypted German diplomatic messages transmitted on January 16th and 17th through State Department cables from Washington to Mexico City. The traffic patterns match what the British describe, but the messages are encrypted. The Americans can't read them. They were just acting as a neutral postal service. They never decrypted German diplomatic communications. Still, the fact that messages were sent when and where the British claim is evidence in favor of authenticity. It's not proof, but it's corroboration. Wilson decides to pursue another avenue of verification. He asks the State Department to quietly request that the American embassy in Mexico City check whether the German embassy there received a message matching the Zimmermann telegram's content. This is delicate. The Americans can't simply ask the Germans directly. That would alert them that their communications might be compromised. But the American ambassador in Mexico City has sources in the Mexican government. They make discreet inquiries. The inquiries confirm, yes, the German ambassador in Mexico approached the Mexican government with a proposal about a potential alliance in the event of American entry into the war. The details match the Zimmermann telegram. Wilson now has enough evidence to convince him the telegram is genuine, but he faces his own difficult decision: what to do with this information. Wilson's dilemma. Wilson is still hoping to avoid war. Despite German provocations, despite the sinking of American ships, despite pressure from interventionists, he wants to keep America neutral. He believes American entry into the war would be a catastrophic mistake, but he also recognizes that the Zimmermann telegram changes the political landscape. This is no longer just about submarine warfare or neutral rights. This is Germany actively plotting to turn Mexico against America. This is a direct threat to American territory. If Wilson sits on this information and it later leaks, he'll be accused of hiding German treachery from the American people. If he reveals it, he'll intensify pressure for war. Either way, his careful balancing act of neutrality is collapsing. Wilson decides to reveal the telegram, but through controlled channels. He doesn't leak it to the press. Instead, on February 28th, he authorizes the State Department to give the telegram to the Associated Press. The next day, March 1st, 1917, newspapers across America published the Zimmermann telegram on their front pages. The reaction is explosive. America reacts from skepticism to rage. March 1st, 1917. Americans wake up to shocking headlines. Germany seeks alliance with Mexico and Japan. Plot to attack United States revealed. Germany promises Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. The story dominates every newspaper in the country. The full text of the telegram is published. Reporters scramble for reaction from politicians, military officials, and ordinary citizens. The initial reaction is split between shock and skepticism. Many Americans are outraged. Germany has been caught red-handed plotting against the United States. This isn't just attacking merchant ships, this is actively trying to turn Mexico and Japan against America. This is Germany treating America as an enemy while still technically at peace. This means war. Demand the interventionists. Theodore Roosevelt, the former president and vocal advocate for American military preparedness, thunders that Germany must be confronted. Senator Henry Cabot Lodge calls for an immediate declaration of war. Newspapers like the New York Times editorial page insist that America can no longer remain neutral in the face of such treachery. But many Americans are skeptical. Is this telegram real or is it British propaganda? Isolationists and German Americans suspect forgery. They point out that the telegram is almost too perfect for British interests. It provides exactly the justification for American entry into the war. They note that it comes from British intelligence, which has every reason to manipulate America into joining the Allies. They question why Germany would be so stupid as to send such a telegram, especially through channels that might be intercepted. Some go further, accusing the Wilson administration of collaborating with the British to create a pretext for war. Anti-interventionist senators demand proof. They want to see the original encrypted telegram, not just the British translation. They want independent verification that this isn't an elaborate hoax. The debate rages in Congress and newspapers and public meetings across the country. Is the Zimmermann telegram genuine? And if it is genuine, does it justify going to war? Wilson faces intense pressure from all sides. sides. Interventionists demand he ask Congress for a declaration of war. Isolationists demand he investigate whether the British have deceived him. The public is divided and confused, and then Arthur Zimmermann does something inexplicable. He admits it's real. Zimmermann's incredible blunder. March 3, 1917. Arthur Zimmermann holds a press conference in Berlin. German journalists ask him about the telegram that's dominating American newspapers. Zimmermann could deny it. He could claim it's a British forgery, propaganda designed to trick America into war. He could express outrage that Britain would fabricate such an inflammatory document. He could force the British to prove their case, providing time for German intelligence to assess whether their codes have been compromised. Any competent diplomat, any shrewd politician, would deny the telegram's authenticity. Even if it's real, denying it is the smart move. Make the British prove it. Force them to reveal their sources. Ask doubt on the evidence. Buy time. Sow confusion. Instead, Zimmermann admits it. I cannot deny it, he tells the reporters. It is true. The impact is immediate and devastating. Every American who doubted the telegram's authenticity now has confirmation from Germany itself. Zimmermann has authenticated the telegram more effectively than any British evidence could have. Why does Zimmermann admit it? Historians still debate this question. Several theories. Theory 1. Misguided honesty. Zimmermann was known for being direct and straightforward, sometimes to a fault. Perhaps he simply couldn't bring himself to lie when asked a direct question. Theory 2. Ignorance of American politics. Perhaps Zimmermann didn't understand how explosive the admission would be in America. From Berlin, it might have seemed like the damage was already done. The telegram was public. Denial would be unconvincing. So why not admit it? Theory 3. German pride. Perhaps Zimmermann believed Germany had done nothing wrong. Germany was at war with Britain and France. It was perfectly legitimate to seek alliances and plan strategy. Why should Germany apologize for trying to create strategic distractions for a potential enemy? Theory 4. Strategic confusion. Perhaps Zimmermann thought admitting the telegram, but emphasizing that it was only to be acted upon if America entered the war, would somehow make it seem less threatening. Yes, we sent it, but only as a contingency plan. Might have seemed like a defense in Berlin. Whatever the reason, the admission is a catastrophic error. It transforms the Zimmermann telegram from a debatable piece of intelligence into proven fact. Every skeptic in America is silenced. Every isolationist argument collapses. Germany has admitted to plotting against the United States. American public opinion shifts dramatically. Newspapers that had been skeptical now demand action. Politicians who opposed intervention now struggle to justify continued neutrality. The American public, which had been divided, now coalesces around the view that Germany is a threat that must be confronted. Even German Americans, many of whom had opposed American entry into the war out of ethnic loyalty, find it hard to defend Germany's actions. Mexican Americans are insulted that Germany thought Mexico would attack America on German behalf. It suggests Germany views Mexico as a puppet rather than a sovereign nation. Regional reactions. The reaction is particularly strong in the American Southwest. Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, the states Germany proposed to give to Mexico, erupt in outrage. These are states with complicated histories recently admitted to the Union. Arizona and New Mexico only became states in 1912. They're sensitive about questions of loyalty and sovereignty. The suggestion that Germany would casually promise to hand these states to Mexico is treated as an insult. Local politicians thunder about German arrogance. Newspapers publish editorials about defending American territory. Volunteer military units form. The Zimmermann telegram transforms the Southwest from a region with mixed feelings about European war into one of the most pro-intervention parts of the country. In Texas particularly, which has a significant German-American population and had been skeptical about entering the war, opinion shifts dramatically. German Texans find themselves under suspicion. The Zimmermann telegram has associated German ancestry with plots against Texas. It's not fair, but it happens. Mexican Americans face similar scrutiny. Even though Mexico didn't accept Germany's proposal, even though most Mexican Americans are loyal Americans, the telegram raises questions about their allegiances in some people's minds. It's an ugly manifestation of the nativism and xenophobia that war tends to unleash. Political calculations. In Washington, the political calculation shifts. Senators who had been staunchly isolationist start moderating their positions. They can't be seen as defending Germany after the Zimmermann telegram revelation. They can't argue for continued neutrality when Germany has been caught plotting against American territory. Even William Jennings Bryan, the most prominent anti-war voice in Democratic politics, struggles to respond. Bryan had resigned as Secretary of State in 1915 rather than send strong protests to Germany over the Lusitania sinking. He's been the leader of the peace movement, but the Zimmermann telegram makes his position untenable. He can't defend Germany anymore. He falls silent. In Congress, the debate shifts from should we enter the war to when should we enter the war and how should we prepare. Wilson recognizes that the political landscape has changed irrevocably. He can't keep America neutral anymore. The Zimmermann telegram, combined with unrestricted submarine warfare and the sinking of American ships, has made neutrality impossible. But Wilson is thorough and cautious. He doesn't rush to war. He spends the next month preparing politically, militarily, and psychologically. He needs Congress to be united. He needs the country to be ready. He needs the military to begin mobilization. And perhaps most importantly, he needs to frame American entry into the war as something more than just response to German provocations. He needs a moral justification, a vision of what America is fighting for. Throughout March 1917, German U-boats continue sinking ships. American vessels are attacked. American sailors die. Each incident reinforces the sense that war is inevitable. Wilson watches, waits, and prepares. He's drafting a speech that will ask Congress to declare war, but it will be more than a recitation of German offenses. It will be a vision of America's role in the world, a statement of principles that will justify the sacrifices to come. On April 2, 1917, Woodrow Wilson goes before a joint session of Congress to deliver one of the most consequential speeches in American history. Let's follow America from that March 1st revelation of the Zimmermann telegram through to April 6 when Congress finally declares war. The path to war, February-April 1917. After the Zimmermann telegram is published on March 1st and authenticated by Zimmermann himself on March 3rd, the march toward American entry into World War I becomes inevitable, but it's not immediate. It takes another month for Wilson to formally ask Congress for a declaration of war. That month is filled with escalating tensions, German provocations, American military preparations, and Wilson's careful political and rhetorical preparation for the war he'd spent more than 2 years trying to avoid. March 1917, unrestricted submarine warfare escalates. Germany had announced on January 31st that unrestricted submarine warfare would resume on February 1st. This meant German U-boats would attack any ship in the waters around Britain without warning, without allowing time for evacuation. Merchant ships, passenger ships, neutral ships, all were targets. Wilson had responded by breaking diplomatic relations with Germany on February 3rd. The German ambassador was sent home. The American ambassador in Berlin was recalled. It was a serious step, but not war. Wilson was still hoping that somehow war could be avoided, but German U-boats were relentless. Throughout March they sank ship after ship. American vessels were attacked. American sailors died. Each sinking hardened American public opinion against Germany. March 12th, the American merchant ship Alva Unkina sunk. 1 American dies. March 16th, American merchant ship City of Memphis, Illinois and Vigilantia are sunk in a single day. March 18th, 3 more American ships Heald and Aztec and others are torpedoed. The casualties mount. The American public, already enraged by the Zimmermann telegram, becomes increasingly convinced that war is necessary. How can America allow its ships to be sunk, its sailors to be killed without response? Wilson faces intense pressure. Interventionist politicians demand action. Theodore Roosevelt, never one for subtlety, publicly calls Wilson weak and cowardly for not immediately declaring war. The press, especially in the Northeast and urban areas, publishes editorial after editorial demanding military response, but Wilson resists rushing to war. He's a thoughtful, methodical man. He wants to ensure that when America enters the war, it does so with clear purpose, with national unity, and with proper military preparation. Military preparations begin. Even before formally declaring war, Wilson begins preparing the military. In late March, he authorizes preliminary mobilization. The Army begins recalling reserves. The Navy increases patrols. Plans are drawn up for conscription, a draft that will eventually bring millions of men into military service. This is a massive undertaking. The American military in March 1917 is small by European standards. The Army has about 200,000 soldiers. The Navy is substantial, but not on the scale of Britain's Royal Navy. America has no experience with the kind of mass mobilization that European powers have been conducting for 3 years. Wilson knows that actually contributing to the war effort will take time. America can't simply declare war and immediately send millions of troops to Europe. They need to be recruited, trained, equipped, and transported across the Atlantic, a process that will take many months. But the political and psychological decision to go to war has to come first, and Wilson is working on the speech that will ask Congress for that decision. Wilson's internal struggle. Wilson genuinely hates the idea of going to war. He's an intellectual, a former university president, a believer in diplomacy and international law. He thinks war is a failure of civilization. He spent his entire presidency trying to keep America out of Europe's conflict, but he's also a realist. He understands that Germany's actions have made neutrality untenable. Unrestricted submarine warfare is killing Americans. The Zimmermann telegram proves German hostile intent. Staying neutral would make America look weak and would abandon Britain and France when they desperately need help. More philosophically, Wilson is beginning to articulate a vision of America's role in the world. If America fights in this war, it won't just be to defend against German aggression. It will be to reshape the international order, to create a world where wars like this can't happen again. This is the vision that will eventually produce the League of Nations. Wilson's dream of an international organization that can prevent future wars through collective security and international cooperation. But first, he has to convince Congress and the American people to enter this war. April 2nd, 1917, Wilson's war message. On the evening of April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson addresses a joint session of Congress. The chamber is packed. Senators, representatives, cabinet members, Supreme Court justices, foreign diplomats, everyone who matters in Washington is there. The speech Wilson delivers is one of the most consequential in American history. It's not just a recitation of German offenses, though he catalogs those. It's a statement of American principles and American purpose. Wilson begins by describing Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare. The present German submarine warfare against commerce is a warfare against mankind. It is a war against all nations. American ships have been sunk, American lives taken in ways which it has stirred us very deeply to learn of. The challenge is to all mankind. He argues that Germany's actions are not just harmful to America, but to the principles of international law and civilization itself. Germany is making war on commerce, on peaceful navigation, on the rights of neutral nations. Then Wilson gets to the heart of his argument, with a profound sense of the solemn and even tragical character of the step I am taking and of the grave responsibilities which it involves, but in unhesitating obedience to what I deem my constitutional duty, I advise that the Congress declare the recent course of the Imperial German government to be in fact nothing less than war against the government and people of the United States, that it formally accept the status of belligerent which has thus been thrust upon it. He's asking Congress to declare war, but he frames it not as American aggression, but as acceptance of a status that Germany has already imposed. Germany has made war on America. America is simply acknowledging that reality. But Wilson goes further. He articulates a vision of what America is fighting for. The world must be made safe for democracy. Its peace must be planted upon the tested foundations of political liberty. We have no selfish ends to serve. We desire no conquest, no dominion. We seek no indemnities for ourselves, no material compensation for the sacrifices we shall freely make. This is revolutionary rhetoric for 1917. Most nations in World War I are fighting for territory, for security, for strategic advantage. Wilson is claiming that America will fight for abstract principles: democracy, liberty, peace. And then comes the most famous line of the speech. It is a fearful thing to lead this great peaceful people into war, into the most terrible and disastrous of all wars, civilization itself seeming to be in the balance. But the right is more precious than peace, and we shall fight for the things which we have always carried nearest our hearts: for democracy, for the right of those who submit to authority to have a voice in their own governments, for the rights and liberties of small nations, or a universal dominion of right by such a concert of free peoples as shall bring peace and safety to all nations and make the world itself at last free. Stirring rhetoric. It transforms the decision to go to war from a pragmatic response to German aggression into a moral crusade. America isn't just defending itself, it's fighting for civilization, for democracy, for a better world. The speech receives a standing ovation. Even senators who opposed intervention are caught up in the moment. Wilson has framed the war in terms that make opposition seem unpatriotic, even immoral. But not everyone is convinced. The opposition votes against war. When Congress votes on the war declaration, there is opposition. It's not large, but it's principled. In the Senate, 6 senators vote against the declaration of war. In the House, 50 representatives vote no. Among them is Jeannette Rankin of Montana, the first woman elected to Congress, voting against her first war. He will later be the only member of Congress to vote against both World War I and World War II. The opponents argue that Wilson has been manipulated by British propaganda, that America has no vital interest in European conflicts, that entering the war will lead to militarism and the destruction of American democracy. Senator Robert La Follette of Wisconsin gives a passionate speech arguing against war. He points out that most Americans didn't vote for war. Wilson was re-elected on keeping America out of war. He argues that the decision to go to war will benefit bankers and arms manufacturers, but will cost the lives of ordinary Americans who have no stake in European conflicts. These arguments are drowned out by the overwhelming majority for war. In the Senate, the vote is 82-6. In the House, 373-50. On April 6, 1917, President Wilson signs the declaration of war. The United States is officially at war with Germany. The Zimmermann telegram has achieved what years of British propaganda, German submarine warfare, and American outrage over the Lusitania sinking could not. It has brought America into World War I. Now we need to ask, what were the consequences? How did American entry affect the war? And what would have happened if the Zimmermann telegram had never been intercepted? Consequences and counterfactuals. American entry into World War I is a turning point, but it's not immediate. America doesn't suddenly send millions of troops to Europe in April 1917. The impact takes time. Immediate consequences. 1917. In the short term, American entry into the war is more psychological than material. The declaration of war itself boosts Allied morale and depresses German spirits. The Allies now have access to American financial resources, American industrial production, and eventually American manpower. Germany knows it's now fighting not just Britain and France, but the largest industrial economy in the world. But actually getting American forces to Europe and into combat takes many months. America needs to institute a draft, train soldiers, produce equipment, and transport everything across the Atlantic while German U-boats are still sinking ships. The first American troops arrive in France in June 1917. 117 a symbolic force, more important for morale than military impact. Significant American forces don't begin arriving until early 1918 and 1917. The real American contribution is economic. The United States provides massive loans to Britain and France, keeping their economies functioning. American factories produce weapons, ammunition, food, and supplies. American ships help overcome the U-boat threat by providing more escort vessels and transport capacity. The turning point, 1918. By 1918, American troops are arriving in large numbers. Eventually, about 2 million American soldiers will serve in Europe. They're fresh, well-equipped, and highly motivated. They provide the numerical superiority that allows the Allies to finally break the German line. Germany makes one final desperate offensive in spring 1918, trying to win before American forces become overwhelming. The offensive initially succeeds, pushing deep into Allied lines, but it exhausts Germany's reserves, and when the Allied counteroffensive begins in summer 1918 with American troops playing a crucial role, German lines collapse. By November 1918, Germany sues for peace. The armistice is signed on November 11th. World War I is over. American entry into the war didn't single-handedly win it, but it was crucial. Without American resources and manpower, Britain and France might have been forced to accept a negotiated peace that left Germany strong. Without the prospect of endless American reinforcements, Germany might have held on longer. The Zimmermann telegram, by bringing America into the war, helped ensure Allied victory. Impact on U.S.-Mexico relations. The Zimmermann telegram has a lasting negative impact on U.S.-Mexico relations. Even though Mexico never seriously considered Germany's proposal, even though Carranza handled the situation carefully, the very fact that Germany approached Mexico creates suspicion in the United States. Some Americans wonder if Mexico might have accepted if circumstances were different. Mexican nationalism and resentment over lost territories are real. The Zimmermann telegram confirms American fears about Mexican loyalties. This suspicion contributes to continued American intervention in Mexican affairs throughout the early 20th century. It reinforces the view of Mexico as potentially hostile, requiring American vigilance. For Mexico, the Zimmermann telegram is embarrassing. It reveals how Germany viewed Mexico not as a serious power, but as a tool to be used against the United States. It highlights Mexico's weakness and dependence on American goodwill. The telegram becomes a symbol of the complicated, often antagonistic relationship between the United States and Mexico, a relationship shaped by history, geography, and vast power imbalances. Impact on intelligence operations. The Zimmermann telegram establishes principles that govern signals intelligence to this day. First, the importance of codebreaking. Room 40 success demonstrates that breaking enemy communications provides enormous strategic advantage. Every major power after World War I invests heavily in cryptography and codebreaking. Second, the intelligence dilemma, how to use sensitive intelligence without revealing sources and methods. The British handling of the Zimmermann telegram, stealing a copy from Mexico, instructing a cover story, carefully managing revelation becomes a model for intelligence operations. Third, the value of human intelligence combined with signals intelligence. The British couldn't rely solely on intercepts. They needed agents in Mexico to steal the second copy. Modern intelligence combines multiple sources. Fourth, the unpredictability of human error. No matter how sophisticated your codes, security depends on people not making catastrophic mistakes. Zimmermann's admission that the telegram was real is the ultimate unforced error, and it's studied in intelligence training as an example of what not to do. Counterfactual: what if? What if the Zimmermann telegram had never been intercepted? Or what if it had been intercepted but British intelligence couldn't decrypt it? Or what if the British had decided not to reveal it? This is speculative, but historians have explored these counterfactuals. Scenario 1. No interception. If Room 40 hadn't intercepted the telegram, or couldn't decrypt it, the proposal would have gone to Mexico in secret. Carranza would have rejected it quietly. Germany would have continued its submarine warfare. American ships would still have been sunk. Would America have entered the war anyway? Probably, but later and with less unity. The sinking of American ships was pushing public opinion toward intervention. But without the Zimmermann telegram, isolationists would have had stronger arguments. The public would have remained more divided. Wilson might have delayed asking for war, hoping that more time would bring more unity. A delayed American entry, say, late 1917 or early 1918 instead of April 1917, could have changed the war's outcome. Germany's spring 1918 offensive might have succeeded if American troops weren't arriving in force. Britain and France were exhausted. Russian collapse freed German troops from the Eastern Front. Germany might have broken through to Paris. War of the war might have ended in a negotiated settlement rather than Allied victory. Without the prospect of American intervention, both sides might have been more willing to negotiate. In this scenario, the 20th century looks very different. No crushing German defeat, maybe no Treaty of Versailles with its harsh terms, possibly no Hitler and no World War II, or maybe just a different path to another devastating war. Scenario 2. Telegram intercepted but not revealed. What if British intelligence intercepted and decrypted the telegram but decided not to reveal it? This was a real possibility. Admiral Hall seriously considered keeping it secret to protect Room 40 code-breaking capabilities. In this scenario, Germany's submarine warfare continues, American ships are sunk, But the Zimmermann telegram remains secret. America might still enter the war, but without the smoking gun proof of German hostile intent. Public opinion would be more divided. Congress might be more reluctant. The war might drag on longer. More lives lost, more destruction. And the critical intelligence advantage of Room 40 would be preserved, potentially providing other crucial information that changes the course of battles. Scenario 3. Zimmermann denies. What if Zimmermann had denied the telegram's authenticity instead of admitting it? What if he claimed it was a British forgery and forced the British to prove their case? This is perhaps the most interesting counterfactual because it depends entirely on one man's decision. If Zimmermann had been more politically astute, if he'd consulted with advisors before talking to the press, if he'd simply lied, the impact of the telegram might have been blunted. Skeptics would have remained skeptical. Isolationists would have pointed to German denials. Wilson would have faced more difficulty convincing Congress and the public. The debate would have continued for weeks or months. Eventually, American entry into the war probably still happens. German submarine warfare alone was pushing America toward intervention. But the delay matters. Timing in war is crucial. A few months' delay in American entry could have allowed Germany to achieve a breakthrough. All these counterfactuals are unprovable speculation, but they highlight how contingent history is. The Zimmermann telegram mattered because it was intercepted, because it was decrypted, because it was revealed, and because Zimmermann admitted it. Change any of these factors, and the course of the 20th century might be different. Now let's look at the long-term legacy of this remarkable episode in history, what it means for intelligence operations, or diplomatic blunders, and for our understanding of how history turns on small decisions. Legacy, intelligence, deception, and blunders. More than a century after the Zimmermann telegram, it remains one of the most studied episodes in intelligence history. It's taught in intelligence schools as both an example of successful operations and a cautionary tale about diplomatic blunders. The birth of modern signals intelligence. Room 40 and its success with the Zimmermann telegram established signals intelligence as a crucial element of national security. After World War I, every major power invested heavily in codebreaking and cryptography. Britain's government code and cipher school, C&CS, established after the war, evolved into Bletchley Park in World War II, where Alan Turing and others broke the German Enigma code, contributing enormously to Allied victory. The United States established the Cipher Bureau, later the Signal Intelligence Service, eventually evolving into the National Security Agency. American codebreaking in World War II, particularly breaking Japanese codes, provided crucial intelligence for victories like Midway. The Cold War saw massive investment in signals intelligence by both sides. The NSA and its Soviet equivalent monitored communications globally, breaking codes, intercepting messages, gaining intelligence advantages that shaped the superpower competition. Today, signals intelligence is even more important. With global digital communications, the volume of intercepts is staggering. Modern intelligence agencies use sophisticated computers and algorithms to sift through billions of messages, looking for threats and opportunities. The Zimmermann telegram is the founding example of signals intelligence changing history. Everything that follows Enigma, Purple and Ona, modern NSA operations traces back to Room 40 success in 1917. The intelligence dilemma. The British handling of the Zimmermann telegram established principles for managing the intelligence dilemma, how to use sensitive intelligence without compromising sources and methods. Admiral Hall solutions steal a second copy to create a cover story, construct a plausible alternative explanation, carefully manage revelation to maximize impact while minimizing risk became a model for intelligence operations. The same principles apply today. When intelligence agencies obtain sensitive information, they face the same trade-offs: use the intelligence and risk revealing capabilities, or protect capabilities and potentially miss opportunities. Modern examples abound. The United States during the Cold War sometimes couldn't act on Soviet intelligence because doing so would reveal that American cryptanalysts had broken Soviet codes. During the War on Terror, intelligence agencies struggled with whether to reveal terrorist communications intercepts in court cases, risking exposure of methods. The Zimmermann telegram shows both the value and the risk of signals intelligence. The value: game-changing information that altered the course of war. The risk: revealing methods led to Germany changing codes, costing Britain future intelligence. The greatest diplomatic blunder. Many historians consider the Zimmermann telegram the greatest diplomatic blunder of the 20th century. Not just the sending of it, but the entire cascade of errors that turned it into a catastrophe for Germany. Error 1. Sending the telegram at all. Even if it hadn't been intercepted, the proposal was strategically absurd. Mexico was in no position to attack the United States. The offer to help Mexico recover Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona was fantasy. Even if Germany won the war in Europe, it had no capability to project military power to North America to support Mexico. The entire scheme was wishful thinking by desperate men. Error 2. Sending it via channels that could be intercepted. German intelligence should have known that British intelligence might be reading German communications. They'd captured German codebooks early in the war. German naval codes had been compromised, yet Germany continued using diplomatic codes without sufficient security measures. Error 3. Zimmermann's admission. This is the unforgivable error. the one that intelligence schools still study as the ultimate example of what not to do when caught in a compromising position. Deny everything. Force your opponents to prove their case. Create doubt. Buy time. Protect your intelligence operations by refusing to confirm what's been revealed. Instead, Zimmermann handed the Allies a gift. His admission removed all doubt, silenced all skeptics, and provided ironclad justification for American entry into the war. Why did he do it? Historians propose several theories, none entirely satisfying. Perhaps Zimmermann was simply honest. He was known as a straightforward diplomat who didn't like subterfuge. When asked directly if the telegram was real, maybe he couldn't bring himself to lie. Perhaps he didn't understand the American political context. From Berlin, surrounded by German nationalist thinking, maybe he didn't grasp how explosive the admission would be in America. Perhaps he thought the damage was done and denial would only make things worse. The telegram was public. Evidence existed. Maybe he calculated that admission would seem more honorable than futile denial. Perhaps he was misadvised by his staff, who didn't understand intelligence operations or American politics. Or perhaps in the chaos and stress of running German foreign policy during the final years of a losing war, he simply made a snap judgment that turned out to be catastrophically wrong. Whatever the reason, Zimmermann's admission is studied as a cautionary tale. In intelligence and diplomacy, when in doubt, deny. Never voluntarily authenticate compromising information. Make your opponents work for every piece of evidence. Even if denial seems futile, it's almost always better than admission. Impact on Zimmermann's career. Arthur Zimmermann served as German Foreign Secretary until August 1917, just 4 months after the telegram scandal. He was forced to resign, replaced by a more conservative diplomat. He never held government office again. Zimmermann died in 1940, having lived long enough to see Germany plunge into another catastrophic war, World War II. He wrote memoirs defending his actions, arguing that the telegram was a reasonable strategic gambit that only failed because of British espionage. He found his arguments convincing. History remembers Zimmermann primarily for his telegram. Whatever else he accomplished in his diplomatic career is forgot. He's the man who brought America into World War I through a spectacular blunder. The Room 40 team. The codebreakers of Room 40 had mixed fates. Most returned to civilian life after the war, their contributions remaining classified for decades. Admiral Blinker Hall continued as Director of Naval Intelligence until 1919. He became a conservative member of Parliament and lived until 1943, long enough to see another world war where signals intelligence again played a crucial role. Nigel de Grey, who led the decryption of the Zimmermann telegram, continued in intelligence work and later became a prominent figure in British cryptography. He worked at Bletchley Park during World War II, contributing to the breaking of Enigma. The Reverend William Montgomery, the other key codebreaker, returned to academic life after the war. Many Room 40 veterans went on to work at the Government Code and Cipher School, later Bletchley Park, where they helped train a new generation of codebreakers. The institutional knowledge and techniques developed in Room 40 directly contributed to British success in breaking German codes in World War II. The telegram's physical fate. The original encrypted Zimmermann telegram, the actual piece of paper with the coded message, has an interesting history. Multiple versions exist. The German Foreign Office in Berlin had the original that Zimmermann signed. The American State Department had copies of the encrypted messages that passed through their cables. The British had the intercepts from their cable taps. The German embassy in Mexico City had the decoded version. Most of these documents were destroyed. The German Foreign Office archives were bombed during World War II. Many wartime intelligence records were deliberately destroyed to protect sources and methods. But some copies survive. The U.S. National Archives has copies of the encrypted and decrypted telegrams. The British National Archives has Room 40 records, including their decryption worksheets. These documents are now available to researchers. You can look at the actual coded message and the British codebreakers' handwritten notes as they worked through the decryption. It's a remarkable glimpse into the painstaking work of early signals intelligence. The telegram in popular culture. The Zimmermann telegram has appeared in countless books, documentaries, and films about World War I. It's often presented as a thriller: spies, codebreakers, secret messages, international intrigue. Barbara Tuchman's 1958 book, The Zimmermann Telegram, is the definitive popular history. It's a masterpiece of narrative history, reading like a spy novel while being meticulously researched and historically accurate. Tuchman's book introduced the story to a general audience and established it as one of the great episodes of World War I. The telegram appears in textbooks as a key moment in American history, the event that brought America into World War I. Students learn about it as an example of how intelligence and diplomacy can change the course of events. It's also used in intelligence and diplomatic training as a case study. What can we learn from Room 40 success? What can we learn from Zimmermann's failure? How do you balance the value of intelligence against the risk of revealing capabilities? How do you manage the fallout when sensitive information becomes public? Lessons for today. What lessons does the Zimmermann telegram offer for the 21st century? Lesson 1. Communication security is crucial. Germany learned this the hard way. In our interconnected digital age, the lesson is even more important. Every government, every corporation, every individual needs to assume that communications might be intercepted. Encryption matters. Security protocols matter. The Zimmermann telegram is a century-old reminder that insecurity secure communications can be catastrophic. Lesson 2. Intelligence advantages are temporary. Room 40 ability to read German codes lasted only as long as Germany didn't know it was compromised. Once the Zimmermann telegram revealed British code-breaking capabilities, Germany changed its codes. In the modern world, intelligence advantages fade quickly. Adversaries adapt. What works today might not work tomorrow. Lesson 3. The intelligence dilemma is real. Britain gained enormously from revealing the Zimmermann telegram American entry into the war, but it lost its code-breaking advantage. Intelligence agencies today face the same trade-offs constantly. Use the intelligence now and risk future capabilities, or protect capabilities and potentially miss opportunities. There's no easy answer. Lesson 4. Human error defeats the best security. All of Germany's encryption and communications security couldn't protect against Zimmermann's decision to admit the telegram was real. In modern cybersecurity, the weakest link is often human. Social engineering, phishing, and simple mistakes compromise security more often than sophisticated hacking. Lesson 5. Context matters in intelligence. The Zimmermann telegram's impact depended entirely on timing and context. Earlier in the war, before unrestricted submarine warfare, it might not have been enough to bring America into the war. Later, after America had already entered, it would have been anticlimactic. Intelligence is only valuable if used at the right moment in the right way. Lesson 6. Strategic thinking requires understanding your adversary. Germany's fundamental mistake was not understanding America or Mexico. Germany didn't grasp that Mexico couldn't and wouldn't attack the United States. Germany didn't anticipate how American public opinion would react to the proposal. Strategic planning requires understanding not just your own capabilities and intentions, but how others will perceive and respond to your actions. Modern echoes. The Zimmermann telegram has surprising relevance to modern issues. Consider election interference. When Russian intelligence services hacked Democratic Party emails in 2016 and released them through WikiLeaks, they were engaging in information operations similar to what Britain did with the Zimmermann telegram, using intercepted communications to influence political outcomes. The ethics are complicated. Britain intercepted German communications and revealed them to influence American policy. Russia intercepted American communications and revealed them to influence American elections. Same technique, different purposes. Consider the Snowden revelations. Edward Snowden's disclosure of NSA surveillance programs revealed that the United States had capabilities similar to our exceeding Room 40 ability to intercept global communications. The public reaction, outrage at surveillance, debates about privacy versus security echoes the concerns about British cable tapping in 1917. Consider cyber warfare. Modern nations hack each other's computer systems the way Room 40 intercepted German cables. The same intelligence dilemmas apply. When do you reveal what you obtain? How do you use intelligence without compromising sources and methods? When does intelligence gathering cross the line into acts of war? The Zimmermann telegram is more than historical curiosity. It's a case study in intelligence operations, diplomatic blunders, strategic communication, and how small decisions can have enormous consequences. The specific technologies change from telegraph cables to encrypted emails to quantum communications, but the fundamental principles remain. Final thoughts on contingency. Perhaps the most important lesson from the Zimmermann telegram is how contingent history is. So many things had to go right for the telegram to have its impact. Britain had to be tapping the cables. Room 40 had to intercept the message. The codebreakers had to be able to decrypt it. Admiral Hall had to decide to reveal it. The British had to successfully construct a cover story. Wilson had to believe it was authentic. Zimmermann had to admit it was real. Change any one of these factors, and American entry into World War I might have been delayed or prevented. The 20th century might have unfolded differently. World War I might have ended differently. World War II might not have happened or might have happened differently. One telegram, one message containing fewer than 200 words, changed history. It brought America into World War I. It helped ensure Allied victory. It influenced the Treaty of Versailles. It shaped the interwar period. It contributed to the conditions that led to World War II. And it all happened because a desperate German foreign secretary made a catastrophic error in judgment, because brilliant British codebreakers did their job, and because one man couldn't bring himself to deny the obvious when confronted with his mistake. January 17, 1917. British codebreakers in Room 40 decrypt a German telegram that will change the course of World War I and shape the 20th century. March 1, 1917. The telegram is published in American newspapers, shocking the nation and transforming public opinion. March 3, 1917. Arthur Zimmermann admits the telegram is real, silencing skeptics and ensuring American entry into the war. April 6, 1917. The United States declares war on Germany, ultimately contributing to Allied victory and reshaping the global order. The Zimmermann telegram is many things: an intelligence triumph, a diplomatic disaster, a moment when technology and human error collided to change history. It's a spy story, a political drama, and a lesson in how wars are won and lost not just on battlefields but in communications and codebreaking and diplomatic blunders. For Britain, it was proof that signals intelligence could provide decisive strategic advantage. Room 40's success validated the investment in codebreaking and established principles that govern intelligence operations to this day. For Germany, it was a catastrophic error that brought a powerful adversary into the war at a critical moment. The telegram itself was foolish, offering Mexico what Germany couldn't possibly deliver, underestimating American power, overestimating Mexican capability. But Zimmermann's admission transformed a manageable problem into a disaster. For America, it was the provocation that ended neutrality. Wilson had resisted entering the war for more than 2 years, but the Zimmermann telegram, combined with unrestricted submarine warfare, made neutrality impossible. It gave interventionists the evidence they needed and silenced isolationists who had argued America had no stake in European conflicts. For Mexico, it was a reminder of its vulnerable position between German ambitions and American power. The telegram revealed how major powers viewed Mexico as a tool to be manipulated, not a serious actor in its own right. The Zimmermann telegram is studied in intelligence schools as both success story and cautionary tale. Success for Britain, brilliant codebreaking, careful intelligence management, effective weaponization of information. Cautionary tale for Germany, poor communications security, strategic delusion, catastrophic admission of guilt. It's taught in diplomatic training as an example of how not to conduct foreign policy. Never make promises you can't keep. Never underestimate your adversaries. Never admit to compromising information. Never send sensitive messages through channels that might be compromised. Never let desperation drive strategy. It appears in history textbooks as a pivotal moment. Without the Zimmermann telegram, America might have delayed entering World War I. The war might have ended differently. The Treaty of Versailles might have been different. The 20th century might have unfolded along different paths. But the Zimmermann telegram is more than historical example. It's a reminder that history turns on small decisions made by individuals under pressure. Arthur Zimmermann drafting a desperate proposal in Berlin. Nigel de Grey working through an encrypted message in London. Woodrow Wilson reading the decrypted telegram in Washington. Each made decisions that shaped the future. It's a reminder that technology changes warfare and diplomacy. Telegraph cables and wireless communications gave World War I a global reach. Codebreaking gave nations the ability to read their enemies' secret plans. These technologies changed how wars were fought and won. It's a reminder that intelligence matters. Information is power. Knowing what your adversary plans can provide decisive advantage, but intelligence is only valuable if used wisely, if revealed at the right moment, if weaponized effectively. It's a reminder that communication security is crucial. Every message you send might be intercepted. Every plan you share might be compromised. The Zimmermann telegram was sent in code, using what Germany thought were secure channels, but British intelligence read it anyway. Modern encryption is more sophisticated, but the fundamental truth remains. Assume your adversaries might be listening. It's a reminder that human error defeats the best systems. All of Germany's communication security couldn't overcome Zimmermann's decision to admit the telegram was real. All of Room 40 technical brilliance needed Zimmermann's blunder to have full impact. Technology matters, but humans make the crucial decisions. Most fundamentally, the Zimmermann telegram is a reminder of contingency in history. So many things had to happen for this telegram to have its impact. The British had to intercept it. Room 40 had to decrypt it. Hall had to reveal it. Wilson had to believe it. Zimmermann had to admit it. Change any of these factors, and history unfolds differently. We live in a world shaped by the Zimmermann telegram. American entry into World War I helped ensure Allied victory. That victory shaped the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty's terms created conditions that led to World War II. World War II created the Cold War world order. The Cold War shaped the late 20th century, and here we are in the 21st century, living with consequences of decisions made in 1917. One telegram, one message, one catastrophic blunder, and everything changed. The next time you hear about intercepted communications or diplomatic cables reveal or intelligence agencies decrypting messages, remember the Zimmermann telegram. Remember that this has been happening for more than a century. Remember that the technologies change, but the fundamental dynamics, espionage, codebreaking, strategic communication, diplomatic blunders remain constant. Remember that in January 1917, a desperate German foreign secretary sent a telegram proposing that Mexico attack the United States. Remember that British codebreakers intercepted it and decrypted it. Remember that when confronted, Zimmermann admitted it. And remember that this cascade of decisions brought America into World War I and changed the course of the 20th century. History turns on small moments. The Zimmermann telegram is one of the most consequential small moments in modern history. It's a reminder that individual decisions matter, that intelligence matters, that communication security matters, and that sometimes a single message can change everything. In our hyper-connected 21st century world, where billions of messages flow across digital networks every second, where intelligence agencies monitor communications globally, where encryption and codebreaking are more sophisticated than ever, the lessons of the Zimmermann telegram remain relevant. Protect your communications. Understand that adversaries might be listening. Think carefully before sending sensitive messages. And if you're caught in a compromising position, for heaven's sake, don't admit it. Arthur Zimmermann learned that lesson the hard way. His telegram, his blunder, his admission, they changed history. More than a century later, we're still living with the consequences. The E&D Hall has to weigh the value of bringing America into the war against the value of continuing to read German codes. It's not an easy calculation. American entry would provide enormous resources, money, industrial production, eventually millions of fresh troops. But losing the code-breaking advantage could cost Britain crucial battles at sea and valuable intelligence about German strategy. Hull decides the risk is worth it. America's entry into the war is more valuable than continuing to read German codes, but he still needs to protect Room 40 as much as possible. Problem 2. The American cable problem. Britain has been intercepting messages sent through American diplomatic cables. This is a massive violation of American neutrality and sovereignty. The Americans allowed Germany to use State Department cables as a neutral courtesy, never imagining that Britain was reading everything. If the Americans discover this, they'll be furious, not just at Germany, but at Britain. It might even damage the Anglo-American relationship that Britain desperately needs to preserve. So Hull needs a cover story that explains how Britain obtained the telegram without admitting to cable interception. This is why stealing the copy from Mexico City was crucial. It gives him a plausible alternative explanation. The cover story Hull constructs is deliberately vague. British intelligence obtained the telegram in Mexico. He doesn't specify how. This allows people to assume it was traditional espionage, a burglary, a bribed employee, a spy in the German embassy. It protects the truth about cable interception. Problem 3. Authentication. When the telegram is revealed, Germany will have every reason to claim it's a forgery. This is British propaganda, they'll say. Britain fabricated this telegram to trick America into joining the war. Skepticism is natural. The telegram is so provocative, so damaging to Germany, that it seems almost too convenient for British interests. Many Americans, especially those who oppose entering the war, will be suspicious. Hull needs the telegram to be authenticated in a way that leaves no doubt about its genuineness. The best way to do this would be for Germany itself to admit the telegram is real. But why would Germany do that? This is a problem Hull can't entirely solve in advance. He'll have to present the telegram and hope that the evidence is convincing enough to overcome skepticism. Problem 4. Timing. When should the telegram be revealed? Too early and its impact might be diluted. Too late and the opportunity might pass. Hull decides to wait until Germany resumes unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1st. Once German U-boats start sinking American ships, American public opinion will already be turning against Germany. The telegram will be the final push, the proof that Germany is actively hostile to American interests. He also needs to coordinate with the Americans carefully. He can't just leak the telegram to the press. That would raise questions about how it was obtained and might make it seem like British manipulation. He needs to go through official channels, presenting it to the American government and letting them decide how to handle it. The approach to America. On February 19th, Hull arranges a meeting with Edward Bell, the secretary of the American embassy in London. He shows Bell the decrypted telegram and explains, with his carefully constructed cover story, that it was obtained in Mexico City. Bell is shocked. He immediately recognizes the significance. He cables Washington, informing the State Department that British intelligence has explosive information to share. On February 23rd, the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, formally presents the telegram to Walter Hines Page, the American ambassador to Britain. Page is already strongly pro-British and pro-intervention. He's been arguing for months that America should enter the war. The Zimmermann telegram gives him the ammunition he needs. Page cables President Wilson and Secretary of State Robert Lansing. He sends the full text of the decrypted telegram along with the British explanation of how it was obtained. The message reaches Wilson on February 24th, 1917. Wilson reads it and immediately grasps its significance. But he also has doubts. Is it real? Would it be a British forgery designed to manipulate America into war? Wilson is naturally suspicious. He spent more than 2 years resisting pressure to enter the war. He won re-election on keeping America neutral. He knows the British desperately want America to join the Allies. This telegram is almost too perfect for British interests. It provides exactly the justification Wilson's opponents need to demand war. So Wilson asks the crucial question, how can we verify this is genuine? The British have anticipated this. They've provided enough details that the telegram can be checked. The State Department has records of German messages sent through American cables. They can confirm that a message matching the description was sent on the dates indicated. The Americans check. Yes, there are records of encrypted German diplomatic messages transmitted on January 16th and 17th through State Department cables from Washington to Mexico City. The traffic patterns match what the British describe, but the messages are encrypted. The Americans can't read them. They were just acting as a neutral postal service. They never decrypted German diplomatic communications. Still, the fact that messages were sent when and where the British claim is evidence in favor of authenticity. It's not proof, but it's corroboration. Wilson decides to pursue another avenue of verification. He asks the State Department to quietly request that the American embassy in Mexico City check whether the German embassy there received a message matching the Zimmermann telegram's content. This is delicate. The Americans can't simply ask the Germans directly. That would alert them that their communications might be compromised. But the American ambassador in Mexico City has sources in the Mexican government. They make discreet inquiries. The inquiries confirm, yes, the German ambassador in Mexico approached the Mexican government with a proposal about a potential alliance in the event of American entry into the war. The details match the Zimmermann telegram. Wilson now has enough evidence to convince him the telegram is genuine, but he faces his own difficult decision, what to do with this information. situation. Wilson's dilemma. Wilson is still hoping to avoid war, despite German provocations, despite the sinking of American ships, despite pressure from interventionists. He wants to keep America neutral. He believes American entry into the war would be a catastrophic mistake, but he also recognizes that the Zimmermann telegram changes the political landscape. This is no longer just about submarine warfare or neutral rights. This is Germany actively plotting to turn Mexico against America. This is a direct threat to American territory. If Wilson sits on this information and it later leaks, he'll be accused of hiding German treachery from the American people. If he reveals it, he'll intensify pressure for war. Either way, his careful balancing act of neutrality is collapsing. Wilson decides to reveal the telegram, but through controlled channels. He doesn't leak it to the press. Instead, on February 28th, he authorizes the State Department to give the telegram to the Associated Press. The next day, March 1st, 1917, newspapers across America published the Zimmermann telegram on their front pages. The reaction is explosive.